Hello everybody, my name is Jenna and today I'm bringing you my September wrap-up and my October TBR. I cannot believe that we're already up to an October TBR. That's kind of insane and crazy, and I just cannot believe how fast this year is going. I think I say that pretty much every wrap-up because it seems like I'm literally making a wrap-up like every 2 weeks. That's how fast it feels like this year has been going, and it's crazy and I just want it to stop. I didn't have too bad of a reading month in September. I ended up reading 5 books, but 2 of those books were actually rereads, and for this next month in October, I've actually, apart from 2 books that are for uni and 1 book that is a new release that I want to do a review for, all of the rest of the books that I've picked are sort of Halloween spooky sort of related because of course it is October and that's traditionally the time where you read sort of spooky books. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first book I read in September was Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. This book is the second book in the Throne of Glass series, and as such I'm not going to go into too much about what this book is about because obviously I don't want to spoil it for anybody. So I ended up rating this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars, unlike Throne of Glass, which of course I gave 5 stars to. The reason I wasn't able to give it 5 stars is because I actually had a little bit of trouble getting into the ending of this book. I wasn't completely enthralled by the ending, just like everyone else was, and the big sort of twist plot that everyone was talking about, I actually had sort of guessed halfway through this novel. I don't know if that's because I'm reading these novels so far after everybody else, like that could have something to do with it, but because of that, I did still thoroughly enjoy this book. It was incredible. The world building is still so incredible. The characters are still so amazing. I really did love this book so much. In saying that though, the beginning of this book was a little bit slower to get into, but from about the middle onwards it just sort of picked up and it was incredible right up until that ending that was still good, but it wasn't like amazing, like oh my god this is incredible. So the second book I read this month was Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Reese. This book I read for university and I only ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars, simply because I really didn't enjoy it. So this book is actually sort of a companion novel to Jane Eyre. It tells the story of Bertha Mason, who of course is the person in Jenna. I don't really want to spoil Jane Eyre for anyone who hasn't actually read that book because that book's really good and you should definitely read it, but Bertha is sort of a kind of important-ish character in that story, and so in this story we get to know sort of how she came to be where she is when we meet her in Jane Eyre. The problem is I don't think it really gave us much of Bertha's storyline. I think it more sort of just gave us this endless criticism of the time and of the Jane Eyre book itself. So although it was supposed to be a companion novel, I actually thought of it more as a criticism novel. Because of that and the fact that there were 2 distinct POVs in this book, but they sort of jumped around and I could never tell whose point of view we were actually sort of reading the book from. So because of that I ended up skim reading a lot of this book and I just didn't really enjoy it. Glad I never have to read it again. The third book I read this month was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I read this book in preparation to see the film, which I still haven't seen yet. I was going to go see it tonight with a friend and her dad, but unfortunately I have a dinner to go to, so I can't go and watch it. But I will get to go and see it at some point, I promise. I'm really looking forward to it. This book was incredibly creepy. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. All the creepy sort of photographs definitely added to the story, and I'm so glad that they put those in there. Jacob is this incredible protagonist who for once actually asks all the right questions. I always get really annoyed with protagonists when they don't ask really obvious questions, but Jake sort of takes those questions and goes, hey, why is this what it is? Like, this makes no sense. Explain it to me. And I love that in a protagonist, ones who actually ask the questions that they know the reader would be asking. Oh, it's so good. I will say that the pacing for this novel was a little bit off for me. It took forever until we actually finally met Miss Peregrine and the Peculiar Children, but once we did, the story definitely picked up, but up until that point it was quite slow. I didn't really know where it was going. I didn't really know what was sort of gonna happen. I really had no clue, and then of course we met the Peculiars and I went, oh, okay, yeah, this makes more sense now I know where they're headed. So this book has almost 400 pages and it has 11 chapters, which I thought was gonna really bug me because I'm one of those people who like to have shorter chapters in books rather than longer chapters, but I was able to use the photographs as sort of traditional chapter breaks because for me they sort of were. Whatever was written before the photograph, if they'd written it in normal chapters, that's where I would have seen the chapter break anyway, so that definitely helped to break up the book. So all in all, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The last 2 books I read this month were actually rereads, and I read them in preparation for some critique reading that I had to do, and they are of course Akarnae and Raelia by Lynette Noni. My babies. Honestly, it was so good to get to dive back into the world of Medora. Medora is where I want to live, like always. It is a fantastic series. Alex is like the best protagonist ever. She's one of those protagonists who asks all the right questions. She's a total badass, and in these 2 books she really goes to the ringer, but I love her no matter matter what, and I think I'm always gonna love these books forever and ever and ever. If you haven't heard of this book, then you probably are tuning into my channel for the first time, because I think I talk about it in pretty much every single video. It's just such a good series. I love it so much. So obviously I kept these two books with their 5 out of 5 star rating. Now let's get into the books that I am going to read in October, hopefully. The first book I have to read in October is actually The Eyre Affair by Jasper Ford. I've had this book on my TBR for ever and ever and ever, and now I really need to read it because it's one of my university books and it's coming up for us to be studying it. Actually, I think we're studying it this week, so I should probably get a move on. I don't really know a lot about this book. All I know is that apparently people have started to kidnap literary characters, which sounds amazing, and someone has to stop them, I think. I don't really know. That's a terrible summary, but it sounds like a good novel. So the second book I want to read this month is another book for university, and that is The Chant of Jimmie Blacksmith by Thomas Keenley. This is another book I don't know a lot about. I do know that it's set in the 1900s. Apparently it is a fictionalized account of a killing spree of half Aboriginal Jimmie Governor, and it's a powerful story of a black man's revenge against an unjust and intolerant society. Sounds good. The next book I want to read this month is The Fever Code by James Dashner. This book is the prequel book to the Maze Runner series, and I'm super excited to be getting into this one. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Maze Runner series. I really enjoyed the first and the second book, but the third book definitely let me down, and the prequel book, The Kill Order, was just terrible. I really didn't enjoy that book, even in the slightest. But this book though I'm really excited for, because this book actually follows Thomas before he enters the maze and sort of talks about how the maze came to be, why it's there, why Thomas has such a big role in it, and so I'm really looking forward to sort of finding all that out, because I'm hoping that it sort of answers all of the unanswered questions that I had when I finished the Maze Runner trilogy. The next book that I'm hoping I'm reading in the month of October is The Call by Peregrine. Sorry if I'm like butchering your name, I have absolutely no idea how to say it. So this book is a really interesting one because I really don't know that much about it. All I know is that it is set in Ireland, but Ireland is now a place where no one can enter and no one can leave, so it's very cut off from the rest of the world. There's a place in Ireland called the Greyland where any moment you could sort of wake up in the Greyland and you only have 3 minutes to save your life. And it sounds like I don't really know how to describe this book, simply because I don't really know much about it, but I've heard really good things. I'm super excited to pick it up, and it seems like the perfect creepy book to read for October. And the last 3 books I'm planning on reading this October are actually the Dyer trilogy. I don't currently have a physical copy of them. I'm waiting for them to arrive in the mail. I'm really hoping that they arrive sometime soon, simply because this month I'm actually participating in the Dyer READATHON, which is being hosted by Katie from Kate's Book Day. I will leave a link to her channel, to her announcement video, and to the Give Reads page, all in the description box below, so you can check them out. I know next to nothing about the Dyer trilogy. All I really know about it involves a girl called Dyer, and it involves something to do with a house and some kids being murdered and her being accused, and I really don't know, but it sounds like a great series. I've heard nothing but amazing things about it, so I'm really excited to finally get to read it. So that is it. Those were the 5 books that I read in the month of September, and the 6 books I think that I'm planning on reading in October. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section below which books you are planning on reading this October and whether they are spooky related because Halloween. If you like this video, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay random. Bye.